Hi, welcome back to the shed. It's Simon here with another Too Many Projects, and today I've just got the lawnmower out for another year of exciting grass cutting fun, and it's already broken, so we're going to have a look at fixing it. Okay, how to tell this story. So I got it out a couple of weeks ago and it wasn't starting well. I had the carb off, I had a look inside, I'll show you in a minute, but I think there's a couple of passages might be gummed up and need a bit of cleaning in there. But the carb issue paled in comparison to the fact that I got it out the second time and it wouldn't start. I kept pulling and pulling. It was even less happy than it was the previous week. I noticed that this metal ring on the pull starting cable had popped out of the plastic casing here, and as I was pulling the string repeatedly, it was actually cutting this nice slot into the plastic housing of the starting mechanism there. So I had a clever idea. I thought I'd whip this apart and I'd just use the drill as an electric start for a bit, which proved not to be a good idea. I'd already noticed that this string was in a little bit of a bad way, and I'd shortened it quite a lot to get rid of the parts that were just about to break. And just when I'd given up and I was putting it away, I gave it one last pull and it just started. It lasted 8 seconds before it died, but I thought, aha, we can mow the lawn here before we do our full maintenance session. So I pulled it one more time and the string snapped. Clearly the mower did not want to keep going. So I decided to just, the grass is just long now, it's fine. But our first job is to sort out this starting mechanism, get that working again. And our second job, I'm just going to pull the carb off and just let it soak. I think there's a tiny passage that's blocked, just because it isn't used for so many months over the winter. First of all, I'm going to grab this mechanism off the lawnmower. So the main assembly just comes up with these 3 nuts here, which I did not do up tight enough when I was putting it back together before. So that's the inner part of the clutch, and it just uses these 4 notches in this outer piece of metal to engage with the mechanism on the part I've just taken off. My initial plan was actually to see if there was a hex bolt there of some kind, bolting all that all together, which there isn't. It would be quite clever to get some sort of drill attachment that fit in this hole, clipped onto those notches, and was just an electric starter. Just grab the drill, start it up like that. That's the thought I had, which I'm now over. And so here's that clutch mechanism, and all that happens is when you pull the string here, that turns this spinning thing that way. These little ears fling out and they catch in those grooves, and then once the engine does kick in and the outer piece of metal goes faster than the thing you're pulling, or you let it go back, those act like a ratchet and they snap back in to get out of the way. The problem is that this hole was circular and did have a round pressed in piece of metal. There it is. And when that piece of metal fell out a bit, the string just cut this notch in it. And I've been trying to work out what to do about that, and I've got a solution to that part. First thing to do, remove the split pin, washer, crossy spinny thingy, ears, spring, plastic thingy, and then the spring situation behind it, and we just have the plastic housing. And then we're going to drill this slightly damaged hole out to 14mm and off centre, which is a bit of a challenge. Bing! There we go. And what I found to fix this is this little brass eyelet, threaded eyelet. It's actually from a leatherworking website, and I was so pleased with how the right thing it was. I think I spent £2 on it, plus £4 post and packaging. So that was vastly too expensive, but I think it's going to work really nicely. And unfortunately, the pretty curved side that's meant to go on the outside of your lovely leather object needs to go on the inside in order to make sure that when the string goes past it, it doesn't catch on the sharper edge of this one. I've also had to slightly adapt a washer because it's about 4mm when it's fully tightened up in between here, and I think this plastic's about 3, so there's a little bit of play. But now all I need to do is dab a bit of thread lock on here because I'm not going to be able to get it super tight. Then pop my outside part of the eyelet in there. Then I've got a little washer just to make sure it gets nice and tight. This looks a bit ugly, so I'm glad that's on the inside. And then the male part of the eyelet there. Come on, you did fine in rehearsal. Find your threads. Alright, and I can't get that super tight because it hasn't got any flats or any Allen parts to it, but that has got a good bit of thread lock on it. I don't think it's coming off, and I don't think the string's going to work its way through that again. Now, with that done, I've got some lovely new string with some green flecks in it to match the lawnmower. Lovely. And I'm just going to pass that into the side, out the large hole on the back, and from there I can get it through the really small hole. I can put a nice figure 8 in it, and then once that's really, really tight, I'm just going to neaten up the end by cutting it and then melting it a bit. And so that's nice and strong. Now let's work out which way it's going to wind. This way. And then we're going to reassemble this part. So there's a little boss that the spring, when you put the spring back in, it loops over like that. If I poke the string through my nice new hole, then there's a little boss on the bottom of this plastic thing which needs to line up with this little hook in here or be further behind it. And then we go ears, spring, thingy bob, and the spring keeps the thingy bob from binding the ears, so they're always a bit loose. Washer, split pin. I'm not going to splay the split pin yet because I've done this wrong a couple of times so far. And then to build up some tension, I'm going to get a bit of slack on the string, so I've got it out like that. Rotate the whole thing round at least a full turn, and then tie as much of this string round as possible. Without releasing the tension. That's probably my lot about there. And I was going to lock this in place with something, but I didn't think of it, and now it's time and I haven't thought of it. Well, look, here's the pulley endy thingy. Let's see if I can do this with one hand holding that steady. Oh, nearly dropped it. Alright, so I want a knot about there. Nice big figure 8. Alright, let's just see if that's a good bit of tension. How much string have I actually got in there? Quite a bit. Just over 1 metre, I reckon. That's definitely a big enough knot to stop it from going down there. So I'll finish this off as well. Nice smooth action. Can you see how quickly those ears come out as well? So that's working great. Let's pop that back on the lawnmower. So with those folded in, that's going back there. Oh, balls. I didn't do the split pin, did I? Sorted. Back on we go, except that now I've lost the washer. Found it. Have you noted the change in light between me saying I'm just going to drill a 14mm hole in this and then me coming back? That was because it took me about it probably took me longer than that. It probably took me 45 minutes to an hour to drill that hole, because I drilled the hole and then I couldn't find the bloody brass thing because I put it down somewhere. And then when I found the bloody brass thing, I couldn't find the thread lock anymore, which I put down somewhere else. Honestly, I spent probably 5 minutes drilling a hole, 40 minutes looking for stuff. I'd love a garage. I'd love a garage. I'd love a massive unit, but I'd love a garage. The shed I've got here is wonderful, but I accumulated enough stuff to fill it in. Well, I had it before I made the shed. Right. Seems to do what it's supposed to. Fantastic. Next job, carburettor, and I'm going to do that tomorrow because it's dinner time now and I spent all my time looking for shit. Be right back. Carburettor's only held on with 2 screws, but this, whatever this thing does to do with the throttle, goes under this red cover, so I've got to get the whole thing. For which I need to get the spark plug out, plus these 2 bolts here, plus these 2 bolts on the top, and 2 bolts exactly the same as this on the front that you can't see. Then I can unhook that one little cable, unhook the throttle cable, take the fuel line off, dribble the fuel onto the floor, and then it's just these 2 screws that hold the carburettor on to the manifold. Then this little air filter comes off too. I've got that middle metal thing I haven't got a name for fell off. I've just used, by the way, in the past, I've just used a green washing up scourer as an air filter, which has worked pretty well. There's 2 screws holding the bowl, one there and one there, onto the top of the carburettor. Different lengths. And I don't know if you can see in there, but it's pretty gunky. It's not terrible. My major concerns though are there's an absolutely tiny hole there, there's a tiny hole here, and actually I can just show you at the bottom there, I think you can just make out the bottom, there's a tiny hole in the bottom there as well. And I'm able to get my carb cleaner and spray carb cleaner directly down some of these holes and see where they come out. And then some of them I can see that there's supposed to be carb cleaner coming out at the end of the passageway, but there isn't, and they're the ones I'm concerned about. So I've been Googling around and I want to soak these in something to let that gummed up fuel really break down and come out. Acetone seems to be a good option. There seems to be a couple of purpose designed products, but the only one I have on hand is like this. So I'm just going to boil them in water for 10 to 15 minutes. Keep stirring them. Add about a tablespoon of salt. That last bit was made up, don't put salt in it. While I go and look for some settings for those mixed screws and any diagrams I can to actually work out how the carburetor works. Great success. While they've been in there, I did just take them out halfway through, just give them a little brush with the brass brush, and they've come out really nicely. And there's 2 mix screws, and I took both mix screws out because I did find the right settings from the manual, so I'm going to be able to set those up properly even though they've been removed. Make sure those passages got a little extra clean basically behind the screws. Alright, let's reassemble. So everything's moving beautifully, and carb cleaner comes out of various different locations now when you spray it into various other locations, which seems to be much more positive a reaction. On the bowl here we've got the choke, that's working quite well, and we've got the main mix screw here which I've taken out. So that's got a spring and a little washer, and we're going to turn that in, and we're going to gently turn that all the way in until it seats, and I do mean gently. But this main mix needs to be 1.5 turns open, So there we are, gently seated. Half, 1.5 turns. That's where that should be. The other thing I managed to get out was the screw that goes in the top of the main part here, which is the idle mix. 0.75 to 1 turn open. Half, 1, back a tiny bit, but I think a bit more fuel in the mix wouldn't go amiss. Now, float back in. Gasket really needs replacing, but I'm not going to, and it'll be fine. Put everyone back together again, being careful to get the needle for the fuel delivery into its correct location, and then the 2 screws that hold the carb together back on. And so we've got adjustment wise tickler, lets a bit more fuel than is necessary in when you're starting, the main mixture adjustment and the idle mixture adjustment, plus the throttle adjustment is here, and I'm going to back it off quite a bit. And this idle actuator here, I note, has 2 different ways of changing the throttle. One is from the throttle cable, which goes onto this spring, and then the other end goes onto this plate here. And I guess when this is turning, it's forcing air onto this plate, and this plate is moving backwards to get out of the way of the air. No, maybe it's coming over the top and it's pushing it closed. So when this turns faster, it's going to close the throttle a little bit. So I'm a bit worried about this spring is the main thing, because this is clearly knackered. I might need a new one of those, but we'll put it back together as it is and see how it goes. So, air filter back on, throttle control, rod, hooked back in, goes that way though, goes from the outside in. Original gasket back in place, possibly an error, but we'll see. Carburetor seems a lot cleaner than the rest of the engine now. One day. Alright, and this throttle hooks back into this wind paddle. I'm going to call it a wind paddle. Alright, actually having a fiddle with that spring as it is, it now actuates the throttle much more smoothly than it did before, so I think that's an improvement. Throttle cable back on, bit of grease on that. Fuel supply back in place, and the shroud back in place. Alright, I'll bolt that down, we'll see if it starts. Right, first of all, does it turn round? Yes! Very smooth action, done a good job there. Right, let's try and start it. Oh, choke, I haven't choked it. Okay, half choke. Nothing. That was the least effort to start this lawnmower I've ever experienced. Let's call it something close to how it's actually supposed to work out. I'm going to mow the lawn. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.